Don't curl on me, even though I know you're stockinette. It's just how it goes. Heartbreak is one thing, my ego's another. Don't you curl on me, mother. Oh. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Carrie Craft Geek, and this is where I share my love of making pretty things with pretty string, normally with 2 sticks. One thing that is just fundamentally true about knitting, it is knitting physics, which is if you knit a fabric in stockinette, it will curl. You cannot avoid this. You can only control for it. This is the Rosewood Cloche by Jenny Noto of Wanded Knit and Crochet, which I literally just finished today. I cast it off this morning, and if you look inside, you can see I got a whole lot of ends I still got to weave in. And in this project, we controlled the curl by using a hemmed edge cast on. And a hemmed cast on is so beautiful because it gives you a lovely rounded fabric on either side, okay? And it controls the curl. The beginning of your project will not curl with this technique. So hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and let's work a hemmed edge cast on. So the way that the hemmed edge cast on works is pretty straightforward. If you know how to knit, purl, do a decrease, and a provisional cast on. I know some people hate them, think they're too complicated, they don't like them. However, there is a method for everybody in terms of how to do a provisional cast on. You can even do provisional cast ons utilizing your very favorite typical cast on, whether it's long tail cast on, knitted on cast on, whatever it is. I have a whole video about it. I will link to it down in the description box. Also down in the description box, you will find links to other videos and resources that I think are helpful from today's video. Some of these will have clearly marked affiliate links, so if you click on a link to do some shopping, I might earn a small commission, and this does help support my channel. So if you utilize a affiliate link while you're shopping, or you leave me a tip through a YouTube super thanks or buy me a coffee, it is so greatly appreciated. Also down in the description box, you will find timestamps to different parts of the video. So if there is something specific that you want to look at, you can easily find it. I hope that you'll watch through the whole video at least one time, because you never know what tip or trick I might throw in while I'm demonstrating today's technique, but sometimes you just got to get to something specific. So at its heart, the hemmed edge cast on is really no different than working a hem in sewing, where you are going to be folding fabric together and attaching it to one another so you get a nice folded, rounded, clean edge. However, the really cool thing with knitting is that we can create a hemmed edge without having to actually sew. So the way that the hemmed edge cast on works is pretty straightforward. You start with your provisional cast on, you knit a certain amount of fabric that will end up getting folded under. Once you've done that, you're going to knit what I call the folding row. This is the row where the fabric gets folded at, and usually the hemmed edge cast on will be worked with a purl row to create that fold line. After we knit our folding row, we then knit the same number of rows that we worked before the fold line, okay? Once all of those rows of fabric have been knitted, we fold the wrong sides together, we put all the stitches onto one needle, and then we do knit twos together to enclose the fabric. Now, that's a lot to kind of try to visualize, so let's jump in and actually start seeing how it works. The first step in doing the hemmed edge cast on is to begin with a provisional cast on. You really can use whatever provisional cast on that you like. For this hat, I actually started with the crochet cast on method, and I chose that for this hat for a couple of reasons. One, I had a large number of stitches, and I find that crochet cast on is really nice to use when there are like 100 or more stitches to cast on. The other reason that I chose it is that this hat is worked obviously in the round, and because of the nature of knitting physics, when you do a provisional cast on in the round, you end up with the same number of stitches on either side of the provisional cast on edge. So there's really no disadvantage to using a crochet cast on for a provisional cast on for a hat. However, for today's sample, we're going to be doing this flat. And in that case, I'm going to go ahead and utilize one of my favorite cast-ons for provisional stitches, which is a Judy's Magic cast-on. That's right. Judy's Magic cast-on really is a provisional cast-on because it creates two sets of loops on either side of kind of that beginning edge. And the nice thing about it is it creates an equal number of stitches on both sides, which is a really nice advantage when we get at the end of the process of making a hemmed edge cast on. If you'd like to watch a demonstration on how to do Judy's Magic cast on, yes, I have a video about it and I will link it down below. All right, so let's get this started. I'm gonna go ahead and cast on about 15 stitches. That means 15 stitches on each needle. So I'll have a total of 30 stitches. So 1, 2. All right, now I have 15 stitches. Just lock that off. And voila. Next, before I do anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to knit my first row of knitting for my project. So if I were working a project, this next row that I would knit would be row 1. So I'm just gonna pull my needle out, and these bottom stitches are gonna just hang out here on my bottom cable. Okay, and there we go. We've knitted row 1, and my provisional stitches are locked in on my cable. These stitches that are down here hanging out on my cable that I have not worked can be transferred onto a stitch holder if you prefer, or another set of knitting needles if you prefer. If I have a long enough needle, I actually a lot of times will just keep these stitches on one cable and keep knitting above it. So it's almost like working a magic loop. But I think for today, I'm gonna make things a little easier for myself and just slip these stitches onto another like circular needle. I just find that the easiest way to hold these provisional stitches until I'm ready to work with them. Now that I have my cast on complete and I've got my provisional stitches just hanging out on a second circular needle, we are ready to continue knitting our first set of rows before the fold line, okay? Now, when you're doing this, if you're working a pattern that has a hemmed edge as part of its design, it's gonna tell you how many rows to knit on either side of the folding line. However, if you are adapting your pattern, quick tip, make sure that you keep count of how many rows that you are knitting before the folding row, because you're gonna want to knit that same number of rows after the folding row, okay? So I'm gonna continue knitting my fabric that is below the folding line. And as a reminder, I did knit the first row of this fabric right after casting on the Judy's Magic cast on. So this is row 2 and is a purl row. So I've knitted about 6 rows here, and I'm going to knit 1 more row before my folding line. However, for the purposes of demonstration and to kind of simulate a little bit of how this hat works, I'm going to actually bring in a second color. And this is one of the fun things with a folded hemmed edge, is that you can work it in 2 colors, and then you got like a little bit of contrasting color on the opposite side of your hemmed edge, and that can be like a fun little design detail that you add to a project. However, the thing about color changes and purl rows, if I were to do the color change at the folding line, I would end up with little blips of the contrasting color along the edge, that rounded edge of the hemmed fabric. Now, if you look at this hat again, you'll notice that there's no blips of color. And then if I flip the edge, there's a little bit of green right here, but it's all purple and it's all nice and clean color change. And the way that I achieved that clean color change before the fold line is by knitting 1 row of the contrasting color before I knitted my purl row. So here is my contrasting color, and I'm gonna just knit 1 more row with this now. So there, my color change is complete, and I'm now at the midway point of the fabric for my hemmed cast on edge, and this is where we're going to work a row of purl bumps that appear on the public side of the fabric in order to create the folding row. And that's just a little bit, again, knitting physics, where a row of purl stitches on a stockinette fabric creates an easier space to fold. Knitting physics. Now, I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to be on the wrong side of my work, which means I can just go ahead and knit this row to create my folding row. But remember, if I were working on a right side row, then I would be knitting a row of purl stitches. The important thing is that the purl bumps end up on the public side of your fabric. All right, so we have a nice clean color change. There's no blips of color on the public side of the fabric. We're now ready to start working the rows that go above the fold line. And again, we want to knit an equal number of rows after the folding row as we had before the folding row. So I'm gonna just count my stitches really quickly here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to need to knit 8 rows in this contrasting color. All right, so there we go. We have all of our fabric knitted for our hemmed edge cast on. We have the fabric here that's going to get folded underneath, so all the fabric here underneath the folding row. We have our folding row that has been made by a row of purl bumps, and then we have our fabric that's going to be on the public side of the work. So now we're ready to finish this all off. Now that we have all of our fabric set up, it is time to finish our hemmed edge cast on. And if we were sewing, we would be taking fabric, folding it underneath, and then sewing the 2 pieces of fabric together. However, we're not sewing, we're knitting, so we can knit our 2 fabrics together. And the way we're going to do that is with a series of knit 2 togethers. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I've got all the ends, right? I've got this tail from my cast on. I've got this tail from my contrasting color. I've got two tails from my color change. If I were working a project, before I did the next step, I would go ahead and weave these tails in just, a few stitches, snip the tails, and then lay the ends that were left over flat against the wrong side of the work and encase them in the folded hem. And now I need to basically seal up these stitches into a row and finish off this hemmed edge. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to fold my fabric so wrong sides are together, and on the front needle I have my public fabric, which is what was knitted after the fold row, and then on my back needle is the fabric I knitted before the folding row. Heading carry here, something I should mention really quickly is I already have my provisional stitches from my Judy's Magic Cast On a needle. However, if you use a technique like crochet cast on for provisional cast on, at this point you would want to unzip those stitches and put them up on a needle so that you can do the next step. What I want to do is I want to do a knit two together. I'm going to knit two together, one stitch from my front needle and one stitch from my back needle. To make that easier, I'm going to slip everything onto one needle. If you were working on a straight needle, you probably want to grab a third needle at this point, but since I have everything on circulars, I can just grab my working needle, and I'm going to alternate, slipping one stitch off of each needle. However, I have two colors here, and I want to use knit twos together, and so I actually need to make sure that when I slip my stitches, that I do it so that the public stitches, the stitches from my lovely blue yarn, end up on the front, and all of my pink stitches from below the fold line are hidden towards the back. So the way I'm going to make sure I do this is I'm going to slip one stitch from the back needle and then one stitch from the front needle. That way when I do the knit two together, the second stitch ends up on top. So one from the back, one from the front. And I'm going to just keep alternating, slipping one stitch as if to purl from the back, and then one stitch as if to purl from the front, until all of my stitches are on one needle. Okay, and there we go. All our stitches are now on one needle. Thank you, spare needle. We're gonna put you to the side. Because I'm on circular needles, I can just slip all my stitches back here, so I'm all set up to knit my decrease row. So we're gonna just do a series of knit twos together all the way across. And you can see all of my blue stitches are landing in front of my pink stitches. And voila, it's finished. So that is the hemmed edge cast on. Like I said, I really do love this cast on because of just how pretty the edge is. And also look at that stretch. It has like a just nice elasticity to it. And it just creates a lovely, clean, polished look to a project. There's ways even to make it look even more lovely. One idea is at the fold line, instead of doing a row of purl bumps like I have here, is to do a picot folding line. And it's actually pretty straightforward to do, especially if you just know basic lace knitting. Instead of doing a row of purl bumps, either by doing a knit row on the wrong side or a purl row on the public side, instead you would do on the public side a row of yarn over, knit two together. You get this lovely picot decorative edge at that hemline. There's something else, however, to consider with the hemmed edge cast on, and it's kind of its drawback, which is this is bulkier because you've got two layers. If you're working with bulkier yarn or you don't like the bulk that might be created with the double layer of fabric. Something you can do to help reduce the fabric is the fabric that is knitted for the underneath portion that is below the folding line. You can knit that on smaller needles, so you'll have a slightly tighter fabric, and that will help reduce some of the bulk that happens at this hemline. Like I said, I really do love this cast on because of just how pretty the edge is, and I'm kind of looking for more opportunities to do it because, quite frankly, I think it's just kind of a fun way to start a project. But I want to hear from you. What do you think of the hemmed edge cast on? Have you worked one before? And when do you see yourself utilizing this technique? Also, if you have any questions about what I've demonstrated here today, please let me know down in the comments below. So that is it for me today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If so, please make sure you give it a thumbs up and share it with your other fiber-loving friends. Liking, sharing, commenting on videos are all great ways that help support my channel and let YouTube know that this is a video that people will want to watch. Also, to help support my channel, please make sure that you are subscribed and you click the notification bell. Clicking the notification bell will hopefully let you know whenever I upload a new video or do anything else here on the YouTubes. Once again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you have a wonderful day, evening, weekend, weeknight, whenever you might be watching this. And as always, happy health and happy making. Bye!